As far as getting into character, I realized this, and I've never talked about it before. I am very susceptible to scent. And I always wear vanilla perfume when I play Cortana.
You know what? Jen, I think you've stumbled upon a marketing opportunity here.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Jen Taylor, and whenever I'm Cortana, I always use Vanilla Scent by Cortana.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome to GalaxyCon Live, where we're bringing the convention experience directly to you. I am your host for today's panel, Mario Bueno, and I am very, very excited about this one. Over the past nearly 20 years, Halo has become one of the premier sci-fi franchises, not just in pop culture, but in video gaming. And we are so fortunate to be able to speak to two of the stars of this wonderful franchise. Let's bring them right up to the virtual stage. We are going to begin with the beloved AI Cortana and the slightly less beloved Dr. Catherine Halsey. You may also know her as Salem in the Rooster Teeth animated hit Ruby. Please welcome to our virtual stage, Jen Taylor. Welcome, Jen.
Hi.
How you doing over there?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
We are glad to have you here. Looking forward to a great conversation today. And
I'm in my studio in my basement, which will mean something when you see our next guest.
Yeah, that is a perfect segue because oh boy, he is definitely living large on this one. He is a 44-year veteran of radio. You may know him from LA's KLOS and Chicago's 97.1 WDRV, The Drive. He has one of the most iconic voices in all of video gaming. He is the Master Chief John 117 himself. Please welcome to our virtual stage, Steve Downs. Steve, welcome.
Hey, Mario. This is my studio.
Perfectly.
You should have heard how she set me up before we came on.
Yeah.
It was more colorful.
But seriously, though, thank you so much for being here, both of you. We see that you're definitely having a nice, comfortable go of it for tonight's virtual panel.
Indeed,
very comfortable there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, comfort doesn't really begin to describe it, but it's pretty nice. It's really just my attempt to try to share some of the sunshine with the majority of the country that's not getting it at the moment. So this is I read somewhere where this last couple of weeks has been National Florida Go to Hell Week.
What's the temperature?
It's about 82 right now.
Yeah.
And sunny, as you can see.
Yeah. I definitely could go for some of that in the, let me check the temperature over here in Brooklyn, New York. We are rocking a very seasonal 37 degrees. It was 29 just the other day.
Nice.
So I could definitely go for that 82 and sunny. So good on you.
Yeah. Well, as some of you may know, I spent the last 20 years or so in Chicago. So I earned this, okay?
Yes.
I do feel a sense of entitlement at this point.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of friends out there in the Chicago area, and believe you me, they definitely would agree with you on that one. they love the city. They love being a part of the vibrant Chicago community. They would definitely trade that weather in a heartbeat. No, don't get me. I love Chicago, but boy, the last month they have. If I may say, gotten their ass kicked pretty good. So my heart goes out to them.
And you're happy you're not there.
And I'm happy I'm not there. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's.
And yes, he is smoking a cigar and drinking a gin and tonic. Everybody.
Yes.
Before, you know.
With my little friend right here.
And everyone,
there he is. Okay,
say hello to his little friend.
Yeah. Say hello.
Especially
to
if you're
my
watching
friend.
In the live chat. Feel free to say hello to Master Chief's mini chief there.
There he is.
Joining us.
There he is.
Joining us from sunny Florida.
Yes,
but yeah, before we get into our general Q&A from our wonderful viewers, we should get the ball rolling with a few questions of our own. We won't be asking the hard questions like we were doing in the pre-show. such as Berenstein versus Berenstain. Although I am welcome to hearing some interpretations on that, because I think we kind of lost that in the chatter as we were getting ready. What were the final verdicts from you guys on that one?
Oh, mine Bernstein. Bernstein.
Mine was Berenstein.
What?
Berenstein.
Yeah,
oh wait, what? Berens? Now I don't know. Now I'm confused.
For me, I have memories of Berenstein, so I'm definitely on that side of the equation in terms of my own recollections.
I don't think it's either of those. Isn't it the Berenstein Bears? That's what I thought it was.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, Berenstein.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So again, asking the tough questions.
We agree. We agree, Steve. We agree.
Yeah. There we go. There we go.
I mean, I would definitely expect the Chief and Cortana to be on the same page, having spent so much time together. And as I mentioned at the top of our broadcast, Halo is going on 20 years. It has become one of the preeminent franchises in science fiction, not just for pop culture, but for video gaming. There is so much love, so much reverence for this series, and there is so much to love about it. But what I was hoping to start off with was to start off at the beginning, not just from when Halo finally dropped into the hands of eager players such as myself back at the end of 2001, but even before then, when Halo was still coming together, when Halo was still just being conceptualized. You guys were brought into the Halo franchise undoubtedly in very different ways. One thing I've always found interesting is how people get brought into the respective roles that they've been brought into. So I'd like to hear a bit about that experience from you guys, if you happen to recall it, before we start getting into some more of our general questions. So starting with Steve, I know that you were initially scouted by the phenomenal composer of the Halo series, Marty O'Donnell, who has crafted some incredible tracks. So what was the situation there? Was it a case of the right ears heard the right demo? Was it some sort of other connection? What was the experience for you?
Well, as you mentioned, Mario, it has been a long time. As a matter of fact, when we started the Halo series, I had hair, so that's how long it's been. But
Steve, you had hair a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, well, and then I didn't. But with Marty, it was a case of two things that for me were personally strange in my voiceover career. Is Halo Master Chief is the only job of any significance that I ever got without auditioning, because Marty used to hear me on the radio, and he actually had me come in for a game they put together prior to Halo called Septerra Core, which was a little tiny PC game, and I had a very small part in it. But so that's how I got to meet Marty, and then a year later he called back and said, okay, well, we're doing this other thing. Do you want to do this character? And I, said, of course, and came in, and we just had a discussion about what Halo was and what the universe was and who Master Chief was and that kind of thing. And then it was like, okay, go. And we never looked back from that point on.
Rock and roll. Jen, what was your experience, if you happen to recollect? Was it a similar circumstance? Because I know you were working in video games prior to Halo as well. So I wasn't sure if it was slightly more direct path, more indirect path. What do you happen to recall what it was like for you being brought in for Cortana?
Oh yeah. No, I auditioned with the masses. And I don't remember if we sent in our auditions, from our agent and then got called in. But I remember going into the office and auditioning or going into their office, and then they took me into the, at Microsoft, and then taking me into this, because Bungie was on Microsoft campus at that time. And then they took me into this little booth that they had built. And it was tiny at that point. I think maybe 30 or 40 people were working at Bungie. Like, it was tiny. And I just learned something interesting, actually, from Marty just recently. Oh. He said, because they had moved from Chicago to Seattle, and he said he didn't think any Seattle actors could play any of the roles, and he wasn't going to really even audition people. He was going to go back to Chicago and cast out of Chicago. And somebody said, no, with the union, you've got to at least audition a few of the people here. And it's going to make, you're going to make friends that way. And he ended up casting quite a few people from Seattle. So, but yeah, no, I auditioned just like any other audition. They asked me for a vaguely European dialect and an American dialect. Vaguely European meaning sounding other, but not able to pinpoint what dialect that is,
And where is vaguely European, by the way?
It's somewhere.
Can you point that out on a map?
Just giant circle around the Europe.
Somewhere in between.
The Europe.
Yeah, it's somewhere in between Poland and England. Somewhere
in that general vicinity.
Very cool. Yeah, again, very, very different paths to get to the same destination. And my next question, I'm actually going to go back to you for a moment here, Jen, because again, working in video games, you have also been able to work in a very particular part of the video game creation experience, motion capture. How much motion capture have you been able to really work on, and are there any particular highlights or fun little anecdotes that you have from your opportunities doing that?
Let's see. I started doing motion capture for Halo. For Halo 4, we did Spartan Ops, and I played Halsey in Spartan Ops. I do remember at the time, that was when I first met a whole bunch of people involved in doing, who do a lot of motion capture now. It was my first time doing it. It was really fun. Anyway, I had a tablet I was supposed to be carrying around, and we didn't have anything for me to hold, but I needed to hold something. And so we had a Dos Equis box because somebody had a party or something. And so we broke down this Dos Equis box, and that was my tablet for Spartan Ops. I remember that.
Acting, y'all. Acting.
Acting.
And we had these marvelous, charming Scottish men who were directing the piece. And they're from Glasgow, and their dialects were so strong that the director would tell us to do something, and you could see everybody was going, what? Like, sorry, can you say that again? That's what I remember from Spartan Ops. But I've done since then. I did Halo 5 and Halo, other Halo,
other Halo,
other Halo. Yeah, it's really fun to get to actually be in it so fully. It's still just using. Well, I guess you're using everything, but it's you're not in a booth by yourself, and that is fun.
Cool. And Steve, I know that you're usually, more so behind the mic, especially given, your work history in broadcast radio. But have you ever had the opportunity to do that yourself, or ever, considered wanting to, just do it for funsies if you got the opportunity?
Look at him. No.
I've watched Jen do it, and I was like, no. Actually, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I really don't have the skill set for it. And it is and again, I've watched Jen do, some of the work, and it's not easy. And it takes a particular talent, one that I don't have. So I'm happy to be behind the mic, but it's really an amazing process, how that's all put together in terms of motion capture and performance capture and all that.
It is really fascinating to be in a huge empty room and create these worlds. It takes a remarkable amount of imagination and
indeed,
and also logistics and technology, and you have to be very specific. I've had so many shots where they're like, that was a great take, Jen, but you needed to turn your head, just this much. So that, like any film, it's like film. So it's in that way. So it's different. Yeah.
Rock and roll. And speaking of rock and roll, we're going to go back to Steve for a moment there. So again, you are a veteran of the broadcast radio industry. Certainly a lot of other voice actors have had their roots in broadcast radio as well. Some of them are still actively involved. I know that the industry has changed quite a bit just in the last 10 years alone, from some of the working actors who I know who are still working with broadcast radio. But during your time working in that field, did you find there were particular benefits from doing that kind of work that carried over into your commercial work and other voiceover work that you were doing at the time?
Surprisingly, Mario, no. Other than sort of, basic mic technique and being comfortable with a microphone and all that. Beyond that, in all honesty, I found my broadcast work to be a hindrance rather than a help in voiceover. For the main reason is, when you go in to do a voiceover job, no matter what it is, whether it's voicing a video character or selling hot dogs, you have to find a character to present, to be a believable voice. And it's the same with radio. You find your identity, as it were, and that's what you do. Well, in my case, that identity, that character, I used 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week, and it would be difficult to pull out from that and go into an audition to do something else and not have a little bit of that disc jockey thing in the background. And if nothing else, if the director or the casting people knew you were a disc jockey, whether you were not doing that or not, they already had it in their head that's who
you were going to do it. Yeah.
So yeah, and so sometimes so I felt like that was a mark against me, unless I was going for the role of disc jockey, which, by the way, I did do. I did audition for the role of FM DJ on any number of occasions and never booked it. Never once booked it.
Steve, I once auditioned for Jen Taylor and didn't book it.
Oh, wow.
Now that's saying something.
Yeah. The breakdown said,
get it.
The breakdown said, sounds like Jen Taylor. And I thought, I can do that. That's something I can really
layup.
do.
It's a layup right there. You got
this.
this. You got that. Wait,
That's
you didn't
right.
get this? What?
Didn't get it.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
man.
believable.
They wanted somebody who sounded like Jen Taylor, I guess. They didn't want Jen Taylor. I remember my agent
You guys
saying
have
that to me.
Jen Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My agent said, you're never going to get this. You're never going to get this.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a crazy business.
Speaking of
crazy.
radio, for me, I know that the technique I found difficult because in radio, I always felt I was projecting into the mic. And when you're doing any kind of voiceover outside of that, you need to be much more intimate with your microphone.
Right.
It's your baby, right? So you treat it gentler than that. But in radio, I found that I was always projecting.
Yeah, and I think that was probably my sin as well. And that's the part I said, because oftentimes, I'd be on the air until 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'd leave there, and by 10:30, I'm in my agent's office auditioning, and I couldn't shift gears that quickly to really unplug from what I had been doing for the last 5 hours into something completely different. So, in fact, since I retired, I think my voiceover career has gone up. Since I got off the radio, which maybe I should have done a long time ago. I don't know.
Yeah, it is very strange how certain things do have that dynamic. Because I know I myself, just the other day when I was here with GalaxyCon, I just got off of a podcast. Now, granted, it was a roundtable discussion forum podcast, but it's such a different dynamic there than when I'm in host mode here talking to you wonderful guests. So I had a bit of mental whiplash myself making that hard adjustment. And it's refreshing to hear that, it wasn't just one of those one-off issues. It's something that happens to a lot of people with this kind of, seasoning in the industry, working in very different, but yet very parallel types of voiceover. So we are actually ready to go with some audience questions. Before we do, just a quick reminder, there is still plenty of time to purchase your one-to-one discussion with our wonderful guests. You can go to GalaxyCon.com, have a nice little chat with our wonderful guests like I am doing right now. So let's see what our wonderful live audience has in store for you guys today.
Cool.
All right. Our first question comes from a very cool name, Presto Shadow.
Is that his real name?
I want to see that license. Don't actually send your license, please. Like, we don't want to broadcast that over this live feed.
No.
But great question, honestly. Did you ever know that Halo was going to be this popular?
Yes. No.
So an emphatic yes from Jen.
No, we had no idea. It was, honestly, I think for me, it was one of a handful of games I did that season. So I liked the storyline and I liked the character in a way that was different from some of the other stuff that I was doing. But no, we had no idea. And frankly, Steve, I don't think either of us had any. I mean, I know that I didn't really know that Halo was popular until they called me and said, "Hey, can you record Halo 2?" And I thought, "Oh, sure, I guess Halo was okay then." But
Yeah,
Steve,
that was my experience as well. I mean, I had no idea because, you know, I was not in that world. I mean, you know, I wasn't a gamer. I didn't play. So I really, you know, I went in, I did the job and got paid and left. I mean, and that was pretty much it, and had no idea. And in my experience, it was months later when I was at a friend's house down here in Florida, actually, and their kids were playing Halo, and I had completely forgotten about the job. I mean, and as you do most voiceover jobs, to be honest with you, once it's done, it's done.
Forget it. Yeah.
It's gone. You know, I mean, that happens all the time. And so that jarred something in me. I was like, wait a minute, oh no, that's right. I did that character in that game. And I told the kids who were playing it, and they said, well, who were you? And I said, you know, I don't remember his name, but I think he was kind of the main guy in the game. And they said,
kind of the main guy.
Kind of the main guy.
Those were my exact words. And they said, Master Chief. And I said, yeah, it was Master Chief. Well, you know, within a half an hour, you know, there's a bunch of kids outside this guy's door carrying Xboxes and copies of the game wanting to get it signed. And that was my first inclination that this was, you know, had become as big as it was going to become. And of course, bigger since then.
Steve, how many sessions did you have for Halo? Just one?
I had
yes. Of course. Go Cortana.
Playing the role of Steve Downs today, Jen Taylor.
Yeah.
We like to do this.
She does it better than I do.
Yeah, we like to do this.
Yeah. I think it was 2, maybe 3. I remember one was just the, you know, what I referred to as the kill sessions, where you're just grunting and groaning and you know,
you had an entire session grunting and groaning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and it was a good thing because I had nothing left after that.
Of course.
And,
yeah.
And right. In fact, the next day on the radio didn't go so well as I recall. But yeah, so I think it was 2, maybe 3 sessions for Combat Evolved. How about you, Jen? 1? No.
Yes, 1. No, of
really?
course not. No.
Of course, yeah.
No, okay. I think I had, you know, 4. Well, maybe I had more than that. Maybe I had 6 4-hour sessions. 5.
Jen had a lot of words to say.
I had some things to say.
She had a lot of words.
Just a couple of words here or there.
A couple of words.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So let's see what else we have waiting for us in our live questions. Okay, this is actually something that I was wondering if we were going to get a chance to talk about here. So this one's coming from Mike. How is voice acting for a video game different than other voice acting? I know we lightly touched on this with the radio broadcast experience, but again, as mentioned, there are so many different forms of voiceover acting, so many different types of work. So in this particular case, what are your thoughts on this question?
You want me to? Yeah. You know, even within video games, there's so many different kinds of video games, right? So there's different kinds of acting that you're doing within. I was not, when I did all of the Mario Brothers stuff, it was nothing like Halo. So I can't even compare them. You know, you always have a storyline and you have something that you're going after, right? With Halo, it felt a little more complete, as a definite idea of what I was striving for, as opposed to something like, Dota 2 or I'm strangely going to compare Dota 2 and Mario Brothers, which is weird because they're nothing alike. But I mean, it's a shorter goal that you're going after, right? Like, okay, I'm going to kill this person, or I'm going to beat this person in a game or in a motor car or something. So it's a much sort of smaller part of your arc. That makes sense. But you're always, of course, it's different depending on what your product is, but you're treating the mic the same, and you're always trying to find. Even if I do a lot of voiceovers for credit unions for some reason, and Girl Next Door, and even for those, you're finding a character to try to sell whatever it is you're selling.
Mm.
Who is it that I am appealing to? How do I want to help them? So I always feel like it's storytelling, no matter what what kind of gig it is.
Yeah.
That was a long-winded way of saying that, wasn't it?
I think, I always approached commercial voiceover as problem solution. There's a problem. Here's the solution.
I'm going to solve it. Yeah.
I'm going to solve it. This character is going to solve it. And, obviously, my video game experience, which is almost solely Halo, but, was you're coming at it from a different place. And in the beginning, like Combat Evolved and Halo 2 were fairly straightforward in terms of, be like this. Once I could figure out who Master Chief was, then you stay in that box. As the game progressed and as we went to Halo 3 and especially Halo 4, the character began to fill out, and which was tremendously helpful for me. So I had resources to draw on that I would never have in the regular voice acting.
That's true.
Certainly, in commercial voice acting, you would never have, books on the character or on the universe, and as we got later on, sort of fan reaction to who these characters were. And as we would go to conventions and meet people who, to whom Halo was very important, you learned more about your character from their reaction to the character, if that makes any sense. Which again, I feel like I would bring then to the next time I would go into record, you bring some of the things that fans would tell you about who they thought Master Chief was or Cortana was, and it would impact my performance, I think, and I think hopefully favorably.
It is interesting when people ask you what your opinion is of a character, and truly what we want to know is, well, what do you think? Because it doesn't matter what we think, really. I mean, you're seeing what we think, you're hearing what we think. So anyway.
Exactly.
Rock and roll. Well, thank you for that. Because again, there are just so many different ways to approach the art of voice acting and the business of voice acting, really. So it's great that you guys are able to bring that additional perspective from some very distinctive fields within that. Let's see what else we have waiting in the wings for us. This one is from Dancing Nick.
Nick.
I really hope that you have a TikTok or something that you can share with us so that we can enjoy this later.
Are you currently dancing?
Oh, Dancing Nick in the chat, if someone can find out for us. Are you in fact dancing right now? I hope you're dancing for joy, because we are about to answer your question. So Dancing Nick would like to know, how do you get into your character? Do you do any voice exercises or modulating your voice? I can already imagine Steve's answer right away for the second half of this, but nonetheless, what are your takes on this?
Come on, Steve.
Okay, well, I had a voice acting teacher a long time ago, who, as part of her schooling for me was, or for anybody she was working with, is that you find things that will help you get into the character, and sometimes they will come from unlikely sources. But if there's a particular, in my case, it was a particular piece of clothing that I would identify with that character. And in my case, it was a pair of cowboy boots. And it was sort of coincidental because the first time I went in for Combat Evolved, I happened to have these boots on. There was no planning on it. It's just what I was wearing for the day. But maybe I considered it a good luck charm, or maybe I considered it, something that would help me. And, Master Chief is kind of a cowboy anyway. He's sort of a lone ranger, if you will. But I took her advice and ever since then, every time I would go in to record for Master Chief, I would wear these boots. In fact, it's the only time I wear them now because they're a little ripe, but but it's just something that helps you slip into your character. And so in this case, it was literal. It was literally putting on the Master Chief boots, for lack of a better term, that helped me to sort of to remind me, literally with each step, I was going into his character now, and I was going to become that character for this session. So, whatever works for you, if it's an old shirt, if it's a hat, or maybe it's not a clothing at all, maybe it's something else that helps you, sort of turn that switch and begin that journey again.
Jen?
Well, I'll get into the, voice exercises or modulating your voice. I do voice exercises just to stay sort of healthy, to keep my voice healthy. I don't really do it before I'm about to go in unless I'm not warmed up. And then certainly, but I try to warm up well before I would show up. So yes, I do voice exercises. It's a very actory thing, but there's a reason for it. You want to keep your voice warm. Modulating your voice, it really depends on the character, right? So I actually generally speak a little higher than Cortana does. I mean, it's just my natural place. And so does Steve. He speaks higher than Cortana does.
I speak a lot higher than Cortana.
No, but your natural, where you fall is not nearly as low as Master Chief.
No.
It's hard. It's still recognizable. Your voice is still recognizable, but you do drop a lot lower. So it really depends on the character. I play a lot of different characters. I've played a lot of little kids. I've played, Medusa. So it really depends on what you're playing. As far as getting into character, I realized this, and I've never talked about it before. I'm very susceptible to scent. And I always wear vanilla perfume when I play Cortana.
So now everybody at home who's for when we're able to go back out and do events again, there you go. You need to have that vanilla scent to have the authentic Cortana experience.
Yeah.
You know what? Jen, I think you've stumbled upon a marketing opportunity here.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Jen Taylor, and whenever I'm Cortana, I always use Vanilla Scent by Cortana.
Well, it's a scent that I generally often wear, but it is something that I sort of had that realization, because I don't always wear it. I had that realization one day when I was doing motion capture, and I felt like, oh, something is not right. Something is not.
Wow.
This is ginger. This is ginger. What's that? No. Anyway.
Also, I can see here, Dancing Nick has confirmed that he is always dancing. So thank you for that, Dancing Nick. Do appreciate it. So yeah, let's continue on, because I'm certain that we have a lot of questions. We still have a couple of minutes here, so let's keep them coming. And thank you so much to our live chat, by the way. Really having a great time with you. Really loving these questions. So this one comes from Rachel. Do you have a favorite weapon in Halo? I know I have a personal answer to this, but I would love to hear you guys first.
I think my favorite weapon is Cortana.
Oh, that's not fair. That's the most OP weapon.
Yeah.
Banned from multiplayer.
Certainly the most formidable.
Yeah, I bare hands. Bare hands.
Okay.
That's where I go. Yeah,
So-
bare hand. I always like it when he breaks out the when,
Melee.
when it gets down to boom, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so we're big fans of the melee. Very solid.
I
It's
also
a
like-
fantastic multiplayer technique.
Is it the needler thing that yeah,
The
that's
one with the pink glowy things that
Oh.
shoot and follow things. Yeah,
that's brutal.
it is.
brutal.
Especially when you have two of them. It is. Oh, it is a thing. Yeah, those definitely are among my personal favorites. And for those of you who are very OG with the Halo experience, the Magnum pistol from Halo 1, one of the most OP starter weapons that has ever been introduced in a video game. You can't go wrong with that. And then for overall design, the iconic assault rifle from Halo 1 that skipped over Halo 2 but got brought back for 3. Just from an aesthetic perspective, I know I got to hold the Nerf toy before pandemic hell times kicked in when I was over at a toy fair, and that was fun getting to actually hold one of those things in Nerf form. But very cool. Hopefully that answered your question there, Rachel. Let's see what else we have going on. This one is from Serenity. What scene from the Halo games had the most impact on you personally? Ooh, this is going to get interesting.
Shall
Yes, go.
Without question, the final scenes of Halo 4. First of all, just to back up a little bit, Jen and I had never met until the 10th anniversary of Combat Evolved.
Oh wow!
So we were 10 years in before either one of us had laid eyes on each other.
10 years ago from now.
10 years ago from now. That's right. So I came to Seattle for what was the convention?
Was it Emerald City Comic-Con? I don't remember.
And Microsoft was doing a big 10th anniversary Halo thing and asked me to come out. And of course, Jen was there. And that's the first time we met. And, we had became instant friends and have remained so ever since. But then shortly thereafter, we began recording for Halo 4. And it was the first time that Jen and I had gotten to work together in the same room at the same time, which was just a tremendous experience and still the highlight of, all the work that I've done with Halo was that was the best because we got to be in the same room together, read our lines together. And over a week or so period, it was just a tremendous experience. And I remember when we were recording the final scenes, for Halo 4, when Cortana dies, or so we think, that we had to, act that out. And it was a pretty emotional kind of day, certainly for me. And, there
was lots of crying that day.
Yeah, I didn't cry. Okay. I just want the record straight.
I was crying, lots of crying.
But it was just a great experience, and I think I would like to think that it shows in the work that we did some good stuff that day, and that it came out in the game.
Rock and roll. And Jen?
That's my answer too.
To be fair, that does sound like a pretty tough scene to top, especially given the context just provided. It's like, hey, just met you. I gotta say goodbye. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, we'd worked together a little bit at that point. Like we didn't start with that.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
And I have this sort of personality where when Steve and I met, I think I said, Steve, and I grabbed him and hugged him, and he was like, "Go," So that happened very quick. I mean, you can see they have that Q&A recorded. It's somewhere online. I saw it recently, and that is the first time we're sitting right next to each other, and I think I'm all over you. I think I'm like touching your back, and I'm like, it's my buddy. So we bonded really quickly, mostly because I forced him to. That's what happened.
Well, the thing was, what we both realized is that we finally met the other person who could understand what the
our
last
journey was
10
like.
years
Yeah.
has been like.
Yeah.
Nobody could really get it other than Jen, and so I think that's why it became so easy for us to become friends, is that we had this shared journey that up until the 10th year we had not shared together. So it was such a joy and a relief to be able to find that person of like, yes,
Yay!
you get it.
That's a wonderful memory. We really appreciate you sharing that with us. I think we've got time for at least one or two more questions before we start to wrap it up. So let's see what we've got next from our from our live chat. This one is from Rebecca. This is a nice general one here. So, what is your favorite quote, even if it isn't from your character?
Mine, I don't know that I have a specific favorite quote, but mine is anything that Sergeant Johnson said. David Scully,
yes.
anything that David
great.
Scully said. Yes.
Yeah, I'm buying what he's selling.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. My favorite character outside of Chief and Cortana, hands down, Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah.
So and I think so much he's unlike anybody else in that. I think they said, okay, here are your lines, now go, and he just would improv. Whereas the rest of us, this was back in the day before they were doing motion capture, and which you can't really. It's really hard if you do that when you're doing motion capture. But they just,
the animators will not be happy.
They just used his stuff because he's just quick as hell and silly as hell, and yeah. I
think my favorite, Scully's work with Sergeant Johnson is without parallel, but Keith David as the Arbiter. First of all, I was a huge Keith David fan.
Got a crush on Keith
I have
David.
a huge fan crush on Keith David, and I got to meet him a few years ago. We did a convention together in Atlanta, and I was such a fanboy.
He was like, leave me alone, Master Chief. Off of me.
You're not supposed to do
Master Chief is creeping on me. What's going on here? Get security.
Keith is a great guy and a tremendous talent, both behind the mic and on camera. But the way he interpreted the Arbiter as a character, I thought just breathed so much life into that character, and was an inspiration for me to step up my game as far as the Chief was concerned. So I just loved all his stuff. And in terms of favorite lines, I always say that the fans sort of determine that, and they have their favorite lines and they become mine. So it's the old the classics, the I need a weapon, or finish the fight. These are the ones that resonate with the fans, and so they resonate with me.
My favorite quote is Cortana. Can you do that one?
Cortana.
It's in every game. Many times.
Say that again 5,000 times.
Can we just take the other 2,000 ones, or nope. Got to get it fresh every time. Got to make sure it syncs up.
Exactly.
Voice acting, y'all. Voice acting. All right, so we have time for one more fan question before we wrap this up. The final question comes from Christy, and this question is, what's one of your most memorable moments in the recording booth?
I can address that. I mean, outside of that scene that we talked about, that we worked together, I guess it was also in Halo 4, there's this moment, as you may recall, when Cortana starts to lose it. And we had a whole bunch of lines that I needed to do, but she's starting to shatter, right, basically, and break up into all. And so we did them in all these different voices. And the director just said, okay, great. Now Wizard Cortana. Now Baby Cortana. Now, just did all of these crazy voices. And that was so fun to get to do, right? I mean, okay. My Gandalf Cortana was not good. Not good.
Oh, geez.
Not good.
For me, again, outside of the sessions we talked about for Halo 4, in Halo Guardians, we recorded that in a studio in Burbank, and I remember it was the first time I could use a what do you call the mics, Jen? The port of the, not lavalier, but
I don't know.
where they're attached to your head.
Oh,
the ones
yeah,
you use for,
your Madonna mic. You had your Madonna
Yeah.
mic on.
Yeah, I had my Madonna mic, and that was the first time I had done Halo sessions with that kind of mic, when you could move around, you could walk around, you could move around in the studio.
Yeah, that is nice.
And it was helpful as you're especially if you're recording lines for a character who is in fact moving through some battle scene or whatever. And I remember it was actually not in the game, but it was in that promo that they ran for Halo Guardians, where the chief is walking through all the devastation, and he's dealing with help me, I'm freezing.
Your mom.
No. Why can't I think of his name?
Locke?
Anyway,
Locke.
yes. And so I'm focusing on him, and there was, obviously he was not there, and I needed to focus on something. And I remember there was a Fender Stratocaster in the studio. He became that character.
Mike Coulter was suddenly
all my lines were directed to this poor Fender Stratocaster. He became the character, and I that's who I was talking to. And I remember, I must have looked silly, but at that point I didn't care. You just wanted to be able to get the lines out in a way that was believable. So I had a lot of fun, doing that kind of stuff.
When we're doing motion capture for Halo, if I'm ever, playing opposite the gentleman who is physicalizing Chief, his name is Bruce. He is, of course, he's a very tall man, but he's not as tall as Chief. And so we stick this, he wears a hat, and we stick a little stick with a ball on top of it, so it's right about here. So I never get to look at Bruce when we're working. I'm always looking over his head. I never see him. So I guess it's not really in the recording booth, but we joke about that. Like, I have no idea what Bruce looks like. What is he?
Yeah, I watched them. I was in the studio one time when they were recording together, and I was just watching them record. And Bruce is, I don't know, he's probably 6 foot easy, right?
Oh, easy. More than 6'2", 6'3". Yeah, he's a tall guy.
But yeah, he's got this like little dee up here, and Jen's always, talking.
Which is hard, because you want to look somebody in the eye, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But you have that focal point.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's going to just about do it. So Jen, Steve, any final words for our Q&A guests?
Get ready for Infinite.
Get ready for Infinite.
Ready for the TV show. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's going to be
Halo.
Things are going to get real exciting real quick with Halo, and I know it's been a long wait. And ended up being longer than we even anticipated because of COVID and all that. But I really believe that it will be worth the wait. And what Jen is involved with as far as the Showtime series is concerned, the head explodes at the thought of what's coming with that. And I still don't think they have any sort of release date for that yet, do they? I mean, that's
no,
sometime in the future.
Yes.
But yeah,
to be determined. Exactly.
But again,
there's going to be
so much to both of you for coming here. Stay warm. I know, Steve, you're not going to have too much trouble with that one.
I'm warm. I'm good. Good.
Thank you once again to everybody. Thank you once again to our guests. Of course, always go to GalaxyCon.com to find out what we have going on. We have events going on every single week. Plenty of stuff to do. Until next time, thank you so much, everyone, and have a good one.